The story of Secret of the Mimic seems to take place right after the storyteller's story in the FNAF books, a series of stories compiled together to form books. The events of the game follow after the mysterious disappearance of Edwin Murray, a board member and an engineer for Fazbear Entertainment. The protagonist of the story is instructed to drive to Edwin's place where he worked on new technology and other confidential high-tech developments. As per Edwin's contract, Fazbear Entertainment will inherit all of Edwin's finished and unfinished developments, and that is what the protagonist is sent there for, to collect all the advanced, engineered creations of Edwin. The employee heard through the telephone talking to one of the higher-ups in Fazbear Entertainment, complaining on how he cannot keep awake anymore as he just finished a whopping 36-hour shift, is barely able to keep awake. The only reason he's going to collect all of Edwin's developments and creations is because he is threatened by the higher-ups that his pay would get cut otherwise.
Arnold, hey buddy, this is Dispatch with Fazbear Entertainment. How are you feeling?
Well, since you asked, I just finished a 36-hour shift, and I'm struggling to stay awake. Frankly, I tried to tell my manager that I can't work like this anymore.
Awesome to hear. Well, listen, we need you to take one more shift for us, since you're our closest technician in the area.
Wait, what? I can barely keep my eyes open.
I know, the grind is exhilarating, isn't it? And we're so happy to have you on the Fazbear team. You can't fool me, though. You're just trying to snag one of those $25 gift certificates at the end of the year for outstanding performance.
No, I'm doing it because you guys keep threatening to dock my pay and repo my truck.
Ha! I love that enthusiasm. So anyway, this will be a piece of cake. We had this contractor named Edwin Murray. He was developing some tech for us, but he's gone quiet. As per his contract, everything he's been working on for us is now legally ours, so we're sending you in to get it.
The person on the phone with the protagonist employee mentions their motion sensors indicate that someone is still in the building, despite the signals being erratic. Either way, the higher-ups don't care much about the employee, and they force them to go, dismissing the motion signals as something unimportant and believe that the building should be empty. The person on the telephone instructs the protagonist to take an equipment with him called the Data Diver, something that he can use to navigate through the building. As soon as he arrives at the site, we see a jaw-dropping large building which has been labeled as MCM or Murray's Custom Manor. It is a huge industrial warehouse where Edwin worked in, developing top-of-the-line technology. And if you are familiar with the story already, he is the one who created Mimic, a mighty and terrifying animatronic who has the ability of changing exoskeletons or costumes, able to mimic voices, and being extremely intelligent. Mimic has been labeled as such as it tends to have an AI able to mimic the characteristics of others or people that it encounters. As the employee manages to enter from the back, he comes across a ton of unused or half-finished toys and dolls and other items which would be used in the Pizzaplex. As soon as the employee manages to enter the building's interior, he is welcomed by an automated announcement that Edwin's Manor specialized in creating a range of technologies and costume for theme parks, carnivals, and amusement parks. This already raises a red flag as Edwin did not only exclusively work with Fazbear Entertainment, but also a range of different organizations. How did Fazbear automatically claim ownership of all of the technologies Edwin had developed and created? Deeper into the facilities, we come across a large number of animatronics who start singing in unison. Soon after, the employee finds multiple suits in similar sizes, being over 7 feet tall, which we know who will use them. In the past, Edwin would dress Mimic in different suits or costumes, so these suits most likely belong to it. As the employee enters the security office within the building, the dispatcher from the Fazbear Entertainment finally unveils the truth that there is a consistent motion detected in the building and that Edwin had a recent project that he worked on, most likely referring to Mimic, who had homicidal tendencies. This endoskeleton or animatronic or robot has the ability to fit and adapt to any costume as a matter of fact, with the dispatcher saying the horrifying thing that any animatronic or costume that the protagonist sees could be actually Mimic. Mimic tends to adapt to these costumes and take their personalities, acting accordingly, but of course with the homicidal tendencies still there. The dispatcher is so immoral that he even waged a bit with other Fazbear Entertainment employees on the likelihood of the protagonist surviving or not. And the protagonist's reward all seems to be a mere $25 gift card. Soon enough, we learn the name of the employee who has been sent to his doom. He is called Arnold, and hopefully he will be back home in one piece. The dispatch explains to Arnold what he is there to collect finally. He has been there to collect sensitive schematics about the endoskeleton that Edwin had developed. A cutting-edge endoskeleton which is a lot more advanced than any other that there ever has been. The dispatcher lies to Arnold that finding the schematics, they could maybe save his life. But the reality is, they possibly want these documents to recreate the animatronic or use it in any way or shape that they see fit. They try to bribe the employee now with his life, showing how corrupt they truly are. As Arnold manages to open a door which would lead to the schematics, he has his first encounter with the Mimic, who has dressed up in an elegant costume. As the dispatch explained, Mimic is truly aggressive and homicidal, as it goes crazy seeing the protagonist rushing towards him chaotically, trying to kill him. After managing to bypass this entity, narrowly escaping, the protagonist soon arrives into another section of the complex, where he finds a massive jack-in-the-box. There's a hand crank which he can use to access other parts of the facility, so he is left with no other choice but to take it. As he takes the crank, the massive toy pops out of the box, who is labeled as Jackie. This terrifying clown animatronic doesn't do anything, but startles the protagonist. As he leaves, he comes into another office when this giant animatronic breaks in, aggressively destroying a typer robot. In the aftermath, the floor collapses, which gives the protagonist the leeway to escape. It's a possibility that Mimic entered the Jackie costume and has acquired its personality, mimicking what the animatronic would say. In a horrifying manner, it runs after Arnold, asking for a hug. Something Jackie would say. I don't know about you, but it would definitely be a horrible hug. Mimic has the ability to copy the sounds and personalities of the suits that he wears. So in a horrifying way, Mimic repeats what Jackie would say, talking about birthday parties, while aggressively chasing after the protagonist. In a terrifying pursuit for his life, Arnold ends up in the package ducts, where the long-armed clown also appears in, slowly closing in to kill the employee. But his luck saves him, as the ducts collapse, dropping him in the secure security office, locking all the doors to the outside, where he would be safe from Jackie. As the employee is safe for the time being, the dispatch explains a summarized backstory of the endoskeleton, or otherwise called Endo. The Endo, referred to as Mimic, was created by Edwin to keep his son entertained while he worked long hours. The Endo had a special feature of mimicking or copying the behaviors of all the things and beings around it in order to keep the son entertained. At some point, this Endo gets exposed to violence, which he mimics, hence why it obtained homicidal tendencies. If you know the story, you know how it obtained the violent tendencies, because Edwin, in a fit of rage, dismantled it violently. But more on that later. The dispatcher then explains the last technician who was sent here died in a brutal way, as we saw earlier, with a limb still being stuck in one of the costume's mouths, presumably being worn by Mimic. So the best way to survive an encounter with Mimic is to simply avoid or distract it. Soon enough, we encounter Big Hat, a robot with multiple arms who partially becomes aggressive. We need to complete a series of carnival games in order to complete this segment of the game, which leads to Big Hat abandoning his post and roaming around freely out of its dedicated location. So it could potentially mean that Big Hat is possessed by Mimic. This encounter is soon followed by an intense pursuit by the same entity who is relentlessly running after the protagonist. This encounter is soon followed by an intense pursuit by the same entity who relentlessly runs after the protagonist. Eventually, Arnold gets cornered in a place. But yet again, the floor collapses, with the animatronic getting severely damaged as a result, which works out perfectly for the employee as he manages to survive and get away from Mimic. With the Mimic present at every corner of the complex, who constantly uses the hundreds of suits ready at each corner, the protagonist gets instructed by the dispatch to assemble a suit which he can climb into in order to get into the theater to progress further to find the schematics. In the meantime, through some audio logs, we learn about the backstory of Mimic and Edwin. Edwin creates this robot for his son David, who is happy to introduce it to him. This seems to have been the result of the wife leaving Edwin and her son David, forcing Edwin to find a way to take care of his son, who happens to be a young kid, being alone now, not having a nanny, and being busy with work. The only way he saw this to be possible was to create a robot to take care of David. Despite David finding Mimic scary to look at, Edwin reassures him that it is just his endo, as when he wears the costumes, he will become much more fun to be around. Managing to go to the theater, we witness a massive production theater which was intended for the children entertainment. The next big hostile suit we encounter Mimic in is the nurse robot, who is attached to the ground and operates through a rail system. But soon enough it manages to detach herself from her rail system and chase after Arnold. This eventually leads to Arnold turning on the incinerator and operating the conveyor belt to throw the nurse robot into it and destroy it. Despite being thrown into the lava-like incinerator, the nurse robot manages to survive, and with a heavily burned and melting exterior, it breaks through the wall and chases after Arnold yet again, being even angrier than before. In an elevator, when the nurse tries to push herself into it and harm the protagonist, Arnold notices how Mimic actually abandons the suit and gets away. Arnold finally realizes how the Mimic hijacks these suits and costumes and controls them while copying their behaviors. Managing to outrun the robot and go to MCM work office, we notice how truly large MCM is. The claim of the dispatch that everything Edwin made belongs to them turns out to be completely false, and they possibly wanted to get the information of how to make mimics. After some time, Arnold goes to the basement, where we get another audio log. In the audio log, we hear Edwin being angry at Mimic, disassembling it in anger, saying that it shouldn't sound like him. By him, he possibly means his son David, which could be the reason Edwin didn't like it. As we know from the main story, the act of violence which made a caring Mimic become as such was copying the aggressive behavior from none other than Edwin himself, who in a fit of rage with hostility started ripping Mimic apart. This is the behavior Mimic picked up and started copying as well, starting to rip people apart. It seems as if Edwin got angry at Mimic because Mimic started picking up and copying David's behaviors, and that is why he got so angry and horrified at Mimic's capabilities. After managing to collect data, he goes back to the security office, where the dispatch instructs the protagonist to hand over his data diver through putting it into a machine, which would transport it to the Fazbear Entertainment team. We have the choice of putting the data diver in or take it with us, not trusting what they tell us. It's very risky to hand the data diver in, as it has the ability to open doors for us and much more, and also communication to the outside world. It seems as if the dispatch never intended for Arnold to get out of this alive. He seems to even know sensitive details which would be detrimental to Fazbear Entertainment. So it's not very clear why dispatch would instruct him to hand in his data diver, as it's the only means he has to get out of the manor and to also communicate with the team. Is it possible that Mimic has already started copying the sounds of the dispatch, trying to fool him to hand in his data diver so he can use it for his own benefit? As Arnold makes his way out of the building, the dispatch goes on a manipulative rant, trying to dissuade him from leaving, taking the data diver with him. They keep on scaring him that the Mimic will catch him and kill him, suffering the same fate as the previous technicians. If he is meant to survive and stay alive, why can't they help him get out and get the data diver directly from him? It sounds pretty fishy, and it sounds like it's actually the Mimic mimicking their voice. As Arnold goes through vents and complicated paths of the building, it becomes clear the supposed dispatch has full control of the building, even closing or opening gates and doors, stopping Arnold from going into certain areas. As the dispatch sees their manipulative tactics don't work on Arnold, they instantly change their tone, becoming hostile and threatening. that they will punish him for being disobedient. Taking an elevator down into a secret basement from the main showroom, we get chased by the big hat robot yet again, who somehow managed to survive. Eventually, we reach a secret location, which happens to be the sister location restaurant of Fazbear Pizzeria, where we find the old animatronics being heavily withered and damaged. After trying to use the data diver on a computer, a monstrous amalgamation of the old animatronics comes to life. This entity chases after Arnold, with Arnold narrowly escaping it again. Through another audio log, we hear from Edwin that the higher-ups changed their minds of an order that they instructed Edwin to make. They wanted something critical changed in their order of animatronics. It's unclear what it was, but it's possible they created the monstrous animatronics. Through more dialogue from Dispatch, we uncover a sinister secret. The dispatch explains without power, they both will be trapped here in the dark. So that clearly means this dispatch that we hear of now is no one but Mimic, who has been tricking Arnold after some time to do certain things in order for Mimic to be freed. That is why it wanted the data diver handed in so it can use it against everyone. According to what we have seen so far, this means that Freddy Fazbear Pizza Plex in Security Breach was most likely built in the place of Murray Custom Manor or MCM. Hence why Cassie, the protagonist of the Ruins DLC, finds herself going into the subfloor where she goes to the old sister location, finding Mimic being trapped in the dark. So according to that, we can learn the secret of the Mimic game as a prequel to the Security Breach and what was there before the Pizza Plex was built. This means the canon ending of the game will be that Arnold manages to trap Mimic in the sister location, which is beneath the manor built on top of it, trapped there for a long time until it lures Cassie, pretending to be Gregory, in order to escape. We just don't know what will happen to Arnold, who similarly to Cassie was sent to this place and then lured in further by the Mimic to give it certain stuff to help it escape. But Arnold heroically traps it, and we just don't know yet if Arnold will survive or not. According to all of this, we know Mimic has a powerful AI, or even we can say sentience, being intelligent and cunning, wanting freedom more than anything, yet not being able to help itself from being so violent. After using some spring suits, Arnold manages to place them at the automated doors to drain the power, opening a door which reaches to Fiona, a trusted partner to Edwin, who worked alongside him designing animatronics and contributing to his work effort. It is only revealed that Fiona was a robot all along. Fiona, which also stands for F10N4. The robot explains Edwin left all his work and abandoned them in the dark, even cutting communications with them. Fiona asks Arnold to go to Edwin's main place and activate the communication means so that Fiona can pass a message to him. Fiona at the end then says something bizarre, that she loves Edwin. Just when you thought the story couldn't get any more strange, it gets even more complicated. Fiona turns out to have been a personal assistant AI who fell for Edwin, starting to love him. Or is it? Arnold getting on his way to Edwin's house, which is closely connected to the facilities, depicts what a remarkable genius Edwin truly was. However, we learn a grim truth that his bank account was drained and all the projects were overdue, with court summons and legal actions taken against him, which might have been a contributing factor for his disappearance. Managing to reach his house, it has fallen into a state of disrepair and has been neglected. With Mimic still on Arnold's tail, he finds a film reel which displays how Fiona used to be a real person. Edwin was married to a woman called Fiona, whom he had David with. However, we learn that Fiona leaves Edwin, causing him to lose motivation and aspiration. To replace this tragedy for himself, he creates a robot which he names Fiona, giving it his ex-wife's memories, hence why the robot desperately wanted to open communications with Edwin and mentioned that it loves him. In another reel, when David has grown up a little to be a little kid during his birthday, he asks about his mother, when Edwin unveils that the mother has gone, but she is still here, which might confirm that Edwin recreated her memories or her consciousness and transferred it into the cloud or a robot which would act as the absent mother and wife. As it turns out in the later reels, we learn about the tragic and crazy secret that Mimic was in fact playing the role of Fiona. There were two editions of Fiona. First, a large stationary robot known as M1, and then M2, which became what we know as Mimic. Edwin wanted to recreate his ex-wife, who made Mimic, inputting the memories of his wife. That's why Mimic is so intelligent and capable of copying personalities and voices, as it was intended to take the role of the mother and wife. Through some dialogue and evidence, we learn Edwin was so busy with the work that he barely attended to his son David, leaving him under M2's care. That's when, as we know from the main story, Edwin loses his temper and dismantles M2 aggressively, which leads to M2 getting his violent tendencies. It's unclear why he got so angry, but we know for a fact that he started copying the behaviors and voice of David. So somehow David was gone, whether he died or left the father, Edwin, because Edwin wasn't paying so much attention to him. And that's what really triggered him. In another audio log, we hear M2 leaving recording audio logs of its progress fixing its office and its efforts to finding a way to restore the power. In the background, we hear Edwin calling for help and cooperation of M2, even apologizing for losing his temper. Despite Edwin's cries for help, M2 mimics his own behavior, how he was to his child David, calling him buddy and talking in a condescending manner, as if he is the adult, telling Edwin to go and spend time with his mummy, as if treating him like David. As we know, Mimic copies people's behaviors around it, so it copied Edwin's own personality and behaviors, learning from him, even though originally it was meant to mimic Fiona's. This horrifying audio log continues that Edwin is badly injured, possibly due to an explosion or M2's actions, with M2 now being fully repaired after Edwin's efforts to dismantle it. So now M2 had the full control over Edwin. We don't know at this point if Edwin managed to survive at all or not, but being trapped somewhere or if Mimic killed him. By the sounds of it, it's unlikely that he is alive, especially as there isn't much supplies to feed him. But as Edwin has disappeared very recently, there is a chance that he is still alive. Just as Arnold gets close to a room where he can detonate the basement to destroy Mimic within it, Mimic finally comes out in its original endo without any suit, chasing after Arnold. Arnold narrowly manages to escape, getting into an elevator to go back to the surface. In the meantime, the original Fiona, M1 or otherwise known as F10N4, starts talking, believing Arnold is Edwin. Fiona explains that she deeply cares about Edwin's well-being and it has been a while since they last spoke. She expresses her concern on how hard Edwin works and tells him let go of all his work and his company. This all happens when all the other helper robots are running to find safety, depicting how they all had sentience or artificial intelligence. Fiona reveals despite being a machine, she cares about their son, David, as she saw him grow up and wants their family to be back to how it used to be. The only concern is that Edwin should fix M2 as it has posed a lot of danger and threat, which Edwin has been putting behind to focus on other projects. So it isn't fully clear if Edwin kidnapped Fiona, his actual wife, to steal her consciousness and trap it within the machine, or if he simply copied all her memories and placed them inside a machine, essentially creating a clone. As the entire manor is collapsing, Arnold runs towards the exit when the Mimic reappears, displaying how resilient it is, as if almost being indestructible. As Arnold runs through the burning and collapsing MCM, he witnesses how all the robots are running chaotically and in a panic, including Mimic, when he manages to get into his van and drive away. However, on descending, all the robots jump on the van, with Arnold trying to lose the stowaways when the endo, Mimic, stays on, causing the car to flip. A badly injured Arnold loses his consciousness in the burning van, while Mimic takes away the data diver and attaches it to itself, which possibly allows it to roam freely and communicate to the outside world. So maybe that is the way that he managed to actually communicate with Cassie, pretending to be Gregory, to lure her in so that it can be freed. It's just not very clear why it lured Cassie into the ruins of the pizza place down in the basement where Murray's house was. It had the freedom to go outside, so why did it need to actually go back and lure Cassie in? Maybe there is another ending which would make more sense. While Mimic gets what he wanted from the beginning, and as Arnold is no longer a threat, Mimic leaves him be, as he's going to die anyway. And on that note, the story comes to an end. There are still so many mysteries and secrets hidden in the game, with many more endings. Stay tuned, as I will make more videos in the coming days about the secret of the Mimic. It's been your host Star, and I will see you on the next one.